All righty, everyone. Welcome to Launch Week Day 2. Thanks to everyone who tuned in yesterday. Lots of cool things that were coming, and lots of many more cool things coming soon. And I'm very delighted to have my good friend and one of the co founders, Mr. Koppel, join us. Koppel, how are things? How's Germany?
Hey Thor, yep, going well. I'm dialing in from a hacker house. Usually there's people sitting behind me, but I think they're too busy. Now it's getting to crunch time in launch week. But yeah, generally it's been pretty good this week. We've kicked it off yesterday with a good community day and a huge feature today that we're announcing, of course. And then we've got 3 or 4 more days of this where most of the team actually are dialing in here from the hacker house. Building and shipping all together. For the first time, actually, we haven't been able to get together as a company for a couple of years because of COVID. So it's pretty cool that we actually can sync up and work together.
Yeah, I'm actually in the room next door. No, I wish I was there. Just last week we did a nice offsite, and it was really cool to actually meet everyone in person for the first time. But okay, what is happening today? Let us know. I think many have already seen it has dropped.
Yep, we've just
GraphQL.
released the blog post, which you can definitely check out on the website on our blog, supabase.com/blog. It's the headline one today. You can see it on our Twitter as well. We are announcing that GraphQL is now available on Supabase, and that's using our open source implementation that we announced in the last launch week, actually. And so this time we have installed it on all new projects and it's available for use. And yeah, we're pretty excited by it.
Yeah, and I think this is now, so any new project that you spin up, it's available by default. And I think we actually have a little explanation here from Ollie. So maybe should we head into that, or anything you want to add at this moment?
I think that's perfect. Let's hand it over to Ollie.
All right, Ollie, over to you.
Hi, I'm Oliver. I'm the lead dev on PG GraphQL, which is the GraphQL solution at Supabase. And I'm going to give you a quick run through getting started with GraphQL on the platform.
All right, and we seem to be having some technical difficulties there. So for some reason, it is not playing with audio. Now, let me see if we can try this again. And otherwise, Koppel, do you know the script? Would you?
I can talk through how to get started with GraphQL for sure.
Hi,
Okay,
I'm
let's see.
Oliver. I'm the lead dev on PG GraphQL, which is the GraphQL solution at Supabase. And I'm going to give you a quick run through getting started with GraphQL on the platform.
Yeah, so basically here we're going to go to the SQL editor. There's 2 ways to enable the extension. You can enable it here by running create extension PG_GraphQL, or you can come to the database section here and you just turn it on within the UI that we provide for extensions here. It was turned on, so we'll turn it off. And we also provide, well, we don't provide this, but you can access a graphical interface. If you're familiar with GraphQL, then you will be able to see the docs here where you can actually do queries, mutations. We're definitely reaching the extent of my GraphQL knowledge. I think hopefully Ollie will jump in soon if he comes back on with some sound. And you can actually, here is showing you can do queries and mutations. Thanks, Ollie. Can we hear you?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Yeah, so here we're seeing mutations. I'm gonna have to try and sync up with the video here. So that all these endpoints are multiple. So delete many, insert many, update many, and this at most parameter allows you to make sure that you don't have too many records being impacted by a single query. So if you want to make sure you're only deleting one record, set your at most to 1. This is the SQL. It corresponds with the GraphQL API that we were just looking at. The accounts table, broadly speaking, the tables become types and the columns become fields. Yeah. And I think we're about to highlight the reference there. So this is how to define relationships between entities in the graph. On the security front, things should look pretty much the same as you're used to using Supabase in the past. Everything is SQL first, which means the types and fields that a user can see in both the schema and via the GraphQL entry points are defined by the grants associated to the user's role that's signed in their JWT. Something interesting that falls out of that naturally is it means we can potentially serve completely different GraphQL schemas via the same API endpoint just by controlling the grants associated to each user. Similarly, in a SQL first way, the row visibility is controlled by your existing row level security policies. If you've written row level security policies for the RESTful endpoints in the past, those will work by default with no additional configuration required. And with that, I will hand it back to Thor.
All right. Sorry about that. Somehow the audio got lost, but thanks for jumping in, Ollie, and saving us here.
Definitely
I think
live. That was 100% not scripted. And,
I think we got away with it.
No one noticed.
I think the one thing that's really cool that you mentioned at the end, the row level security policies, and if you're not familiar with that, it's very powerful within Postgres. You can write policies for example, authenticated users to only be able to access and update, delete their own data. So that's where kind of Supabase auth is very tightly integrated with the database sort of things, and it makes authentication very easy. And with GraphQL, I've always found that kind of a very struggling part. You write kind of your resolvers and mutations on the server side, and then you somehow need to make auth work with that as well. And I think with this, really, you just get the GraphQL API you can consume on the client, and you can just pass through the authenticated JWT, and RLS will just work. Is that correct, the way I phrased that?
Yeah, that's right. And that's already in keeping with what was the best practice on Supabase projects. So if you've previously been using REST and you want to try out GraphQL for either a component in your existing application or something like that, it all just works by default. You don't need to change any configuration.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Yeah, I'm excited to actually get going. I haven't used GraphQL in a while, but yeah, excited to get back into it. Awesome. Thanks so much, Ollie, and we'll let you go. And yeah, please stick around in the chat if there's any of the very technical questions. We'll have you answer those. All right. Yeah, I think that was a pretty great overview how we can get started with GraphQL on Supabase. And now should we get the good folks from the guild into the room?
Yeah, I'm super excited about this. We have basically been working in collaboration with the guild, who we'll introduce very soon when we join, get them to join. And
here they are.
Hello.
Hey guys, how are you?
We're good. Great to be here. Laurin, I think you're muted.
You're on mute, Laurin. But thanks for joining. Where are you guys dialing in from?
Laurin, you go.
first.
I'm dialing from Israel.
Israel.
And I'm from Germany.
Okay, Germany. So we're very close, Laurin. So that's great.
Yes.
We should have had you here on the Hacker House. We could have been doing the live stream together, but
Next time.
next time. So thank you very much for joining. I'm really excited to talk through the example that you built and the collaboration that we've been doing for PG GraphQL, making sure that it's really sound and working with everything that you're doing. First of all, I'd love to, I guess, our audience is Supabase and would love to have you guys introduce yourselves, maybe give a bit of background, what you do, and just give an overview of the guild.
I'll go. The guild is a group of a lot of open source developers. We maintain probably the most popular libraries in the ecosystem. We're also members of the GraphQL Foundation and help the foundation project themselves and the spec and things like that. And we've been doing it for many years, and the members are all like completely distributed around the world. And we're just basically trying to make GraphQL easier and better for everyone.
It's pretty cool, actually. One maybe a bit unscripted because I'm now curious. How does the collaboration work between all the different companies? This is a great open source initiative. How do you collaborate? Do you do a bunch of RFCs, working on a spec together, spec changes? How does it work?
It depends on the project and depends on everything. We're very flexible. I mean, the whole guild was kind of like started as a small thing, and because everyone is remote, so everyone is from different countries all over the world. We had to do everything online, and almost everything we're doing is open source anyway. So it was just easier to do everything online and to put everything on issues and things like that. We have our own Slack because it's just so easy. But we try to write as much as we can publicly, just because it's better. And in terms of foundation projects, there's a really great process there, like the foundation, the GraphQL Foundation. All the projects, everything is online. There's also working groups you can join every month. And basically, the community is really open for changing and for people who want to work or want to change things. Everything is completely public.
Very cool. And before we get into some guild-specific things, how would one get involved if they were interested in maybe getting started with, the foundational work, or maybe just reviewing what's up and coming? How would you get involved there?
I think GraphQL.org is a website that is extremely useful, and people sometimes miss that. It's great to get started and to learn. It's great to find also the most popular and the best maintained libraries according to each language. And there's also a community section there. And I would obviously, I'm biased, but I would also recommend using going to the guild's website. There you can find all the different tools we have in the ecosystem, and you can just go to each tool and their documentation and the tutorials on them. I think that's
very cool. And speaking of your products and your website, I think you had a fairly major release today, which you announced on Twitter and maybe a few other places. Maybe you can talk us through what it is and where people can find the details.
Yeah, so just a couple of hours ago, we released GraphQL Yoga 2.0. So GraphQL Yoga was a very popular server framework in the GraphQL ecosystem, and a couple of years ago, it a bit died down. Prisma, the company that created it and maintained it, moved to do other things in the ecosystem. But they were very generous to basically hand it over to us. And there was a gap in the ecosystem. There was a gap of basically a good framework that's makes it very easy to start and but still is very, very flexible. but also very modern. Like in the last 2 or 3 years, a lot of new stuff has arrived to GraphQL, new features, new abilities, new tools, and the existing servers and ecosystem just didn't use these things. So we really wanted to. So Prisma was very nice. It's not the first time they hand over some open source projects to us. They're really, really cool about that. And we took that, we completely rebuilt it, and we just launched it. And we think it's really, really, really cool. So yeah, thanks
Very
for
cool.
mentioning, and we
Yeah, of
hope to get
course.
feedback from everyone.
And I guess people can find you, maybe the announcement on Twitter, probably the best place, right?
Yeah.
What's the Twitter handle there if they're looking for that announcement?
So the guild dev. So
The guild dev?
one word, the guild dev is the Twitter handle. Yeah, I'll also paste it in the chat, and maybe someone else can like paste it
Very cool.
there as well.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Oh, great. And
Thank you.
then I guess probably a bit broader as well before we start diving into the release that Supabase has made that we've been collaborating on. Our sort of crowd, of course, is quite front-end heavy, but also database heavy. We get a lot of people coming in because we offer Postgres support. Perhaps we can talk through some of the benefits of GraphQL and for people who are new to GraphQL, why would you choose it? Why would you use it? What benefits does it bring, especially over something like a REST API?
Laurin, you wanted to take? I'll start, and you can later continue.
Yeah, sure.
I think there's a lot of benefits of GraphQL, but I think the main parts. The main parts are actually mentioned in the original talk where people presented GraphQL. Like on the front end specifically, it just helps making the front end more modular. So React and the whole component idea came from Facebook, and so people are creating components that they could reuse in React and everything. But then when it comes to querying the server, for example, you can't. You're basically going into again like this one giant store, and with GraphQL you can put the data requirements next to each component, and I think it's a very powerful concept to scale like front-end apps. And of course, like with the basics of GraphQL, you can also just query for only the data that you need, and you get exactly the data that you need in one request and response. So it doesn't matter how many components you render on your front end and things like that. Like basically query just for the data that you need, and over the network you get exactly that. There's many more benefits, but I think if we want to keep it short and the highlights, I think that's the best. And again, on GraphQL.org, you have the interesting thing about GraphQL, like you can see it on Twitter all the time. The more people are using GraphQL, the more they understand the benefits. So you always see tweets like at the start, "Oh, I thought it's this and it's not that." And the more people discover GraphQL and get deep into it, the more they understand that there's so many small benefits of it. Yeah.
Very cool. Laurin, did you have anything to add?
I just want to mention the type system of GraphQL is super powerful. Like for me, coming from a REST background with working with CMSs and then having someone else build the API endpoint and you as a front-end dev, you're like, oh no, what should I do with this? I need to transform it 3 times and then this one data that I need is missing. That's super annoying, and GraphQL solved that. And on top with the type system, it's super safe to use and very easy to communicate between parties like the front-end developers, the back-end developers, and even the product designers, because you can like use the schema definition language of GraphQL for designing your API according to your front-end application. Yeah, so that's super awesome. And basically around this, a lot of tooling evolved, and we're going to showcase some of that in a few minutes.
Very cool. Well, that's actually probably a nice segue into the application that you built, unless you got something else to add, Thor?
No, I think let's show some code.
Okay.
Yeah, let's show some code.
Very cool. So one of the things that we've done as part of today is we've asked the guild to help us build an example application. And so how are we going to do it? Are we going to jump through some of the code first and then look at the application? Or
maybe if one of you can just share the app, so we can
sure.
look at the app first, and then
Yep.
we can look at my code, right?
Okay, great. I'll share my screen. Okay, so if you're looking for the application, we have announced on the blog today, GraphQL is now available, and you just need to scroll down, and then you will see that there is an example application, which is a Hacker News clone, which I actually have up here. Maybe you can talk us through what this is, Laurin. I can just scroll down and click in wherever you want.
Yeah, so basically we decided to build a Hacker News clone, which is called Super News. And the functionality that we choose is that we have some kind of page where you can post your links with a title, and then you can comment on it, you can upvote it, you can downvote it, and based on that, you have we have a full-blown login system, which is powered by SuperAuth, which is awesome. Like, it took me basically 3 minutes to implement authentication with that. I was super impressed by that, I must say. Yeah, so we have our feed route, which shows like the ranked items. If you upvote it, it has a higher rank and stuff like that. And then, yeah, exactly. Like, cool. It works. Oh, this is the famous I like turtle video.
That should be right up the top. I think I'm on.
It was at some point, but
obviously, I don't know. And we've got some comments as well.
exactly, that's like a detail route with all the comments. And
Very
then we also have a new route, which shows like the items in chronological appearance, where the news route shows them like ranked. And then we have a comments route, which just shows all the comments we have. And then obviously we have the submit route. Yeah. Which does not work if you're not logged in. So maybe if you could quickly sign up with GitHub.
I think we might find that. Actually, yes, I am logged in. That's great. Very simple.
Yeah.
Submit.
So type whatever you want. Oh no, somebody already submitted this.
That's a great one. Let's do company.
Which is awesome because we are already showing that we have sanitation and
Yeah, that's great.
constraints, right? It was all planned.
That definitely was not planned. Can I upvote myself? It looks
Yes,
like
of course.
I can, and
Well, there's
only
1 point.
Yeah, one point, and only one upvote for myself, which is great. What about some of the other details? Like, can I here? I think I can delete this post, but if I come into someone else's post, let's say this one, and I come into the comments, I don't see a delete.
Exactly. You can only delete your own posts.
Very cool. Very cool. And then this route, of course, shows a big overview of everything that we've got.
Exactly. Like it lists all the technology, like PG GraphQL code gen, GraphQL config, Supabase, ours. Like there's a lot involved, but like when it comes to building the app, it was actually super straightforward. Like it might look intimidating, but like building with GraphQL is just so much fun, and with with SuperAuth, it was super easy to add the authentication, I must say. So
And
super straightforward to build this up.
this whole application as well is, I believe is it this one going to take me?
Yeah, it's on GitHub.
Great. And so it's all open source. So if you want to see the code itself and how it was built, how the schema looks, you want to fork it, you want to contribute to it, you want to try it out, you want to see the technology and how it was done, it's all open source. Very cool. So knowing that it's launch week and we usually launch in quite a crunch, how long did this one take to build?
Like just building stuff, I would say around 10 hours. Like, because I had to get back to you guys because I had some issues with a few things, but we figured out everything. But overall, I would say like 10 hours in total.
Okay,
So,
very cool. And what was it like to work with PG GraphQL compared to maybe another GraphQL implementation? Were there any things that you found that were different or limited, or things that you still need to see in the extension, or something unique?
I mean, there are always things I could complain about. Like, first, I want to say, in terms of like working with GraphQL and what PG GraphQL provides me as a GraphQL API with all the features of a GraphQL API, I got everything I need, right? I could like get the schema. Like, I didn't actually build the PG GraphQL API myself. It has been done by TT, and I basically just worked as a consumer of the API. I got the schema, and then I set up my GraphQL code gen, and I just started exploring the schema, what is available. And that's the same GraphQL experience you always have if you got a fully typed schema. And then I started just writing my operation documents for like the data that I want to fetch. And in terms of that experience, it was the same as always, right?
Very cool.
And then some things are like special to Supabase, obviously, because for example, let's take the example where we had let's just share some code. Let's go to the submit form. Like, so what we are doing here, we are writing our mutation into our file. With code gen, we are generating a typed code for this. And then within our React component, we can just use our mutation, and we have a fully typed function for actually executing our mutation. So if we're looking at the form, we can fill out our title, our URL, and then we just call that mutation. And then what's special to Supabase here, for example, is the error handling, because usually every GraphQL API does their own kind of way of error handling. And here I must say Supabase could do it in a better way. Because right now, for example, in your case with the constraint, we don't get like a typed constraint from the GraphQL API back. So what we actually need to do is if there's an error occurring, we need to look at the error, go through it, and actually see if the error message includes the constraint on the database. So that would be something that could be solved in a more elegant way. But like in general of just consuming data and sending mutations, you get the same GraphQL experience. Yes.
Very
So
cool.
let's also like show, like this is just a mutation for insert into post collection. And as you can see with CodeGen, you get like full autocomplete here. So what we are selecting is the effect count and the records that got inserted. And if I would need additional information, I could just press enter and then select the other fields that I need. And then as soon as I hit Control Save, we have the CodeGen running. It's regenerating all types. And then if I need to access, let's say here, then I can, on the mutation result, just access my data that I have, right? It gives us full autocomplete and voila. So aside from mutations, you can obviously also do query operations. So let's dive into the ranked feed view, which is like the main page. So here we again, just define our index route query operation. And here we have like two special things. We are first passing some arguments, which is first the profile ID, and to which I will get data, and cursor. The cursor is for pagination. And what this allows is basically PG GraphQL does generate connection types for us, which allow easy pagination. And by just passing a cursor to the next time we fetch the query operation, we can just fetch the next items after our last item in the list. And additionally, here we are actually sorting our post collection. So we get it in the ranked order, and we are fetching the first items. Then we pass the cursor, and then again, we just, on our connection type, we select the page info, which gives us information whether we have another page after our first page that we're fetching, and the end cursor, which is basically the value we then pass as the after value for fetching the next page. And then we're fetching our edges. An edge also has a cursor and a node, and the node is basically the entity that we're fetching. In this case, it's a post. So here we can again select all the fields. But what we're doing here is actually we're spreading a GraphQL fragment. So what does this actually mean? Like if we click on this thing, we're jumping to another file, which is the feed item. And the feed item basically, let me go down there, there's a lot of happening here, describes the data dependencies it needs on a post for actually rendering the post. And then on the feed item, we describe the properties of the feed item as the document types of the feed item post fragment, which we defined here. And then this is basically a component which is within our tree. So if we look at the home route, here we have our paginated query, which is fetching the query defined here above. And then down here, we're actually looking at the result, again, fully type safe, and we're mapping over the edges. And then for each of those edges, we actually render a feed item. And to the feed item, we pass the node, which basically are the properties we spread it here. So by spreading the fragment of the feed item here in this query, we ensure that we fetch all the properties for the feed item. And this is super powerful because in case we need more properties here, like let's say we also need the profile, we need the bio for some reason here, then we can just adjust it here and then access it here. And we don't need to jump to another file and also add it here. And the most powerful thing about this is reusability, because we're not only showing this feed item on the index route, we're also showing it on the newest route. And here you can see we're spreading the same post fragment, but on a different query operation. And then again, we're just using the same component here. It's just complaining all good because I added it here. Yeah. So to come back to PG GraphQL, it gives me all the awesome things I know from GraphQL. Like it maps the database types to GraphQL types. Then I can write my fragments for fetching data or describing the data dependencies of my components. And then I can compose that into one big query operation that runs on my main route or like on the entry route. And then it fetches all the data. So I don't need to fetch additional data within my feed item or something like this. I just have one HTTP request to the PG GraphQL endpoint, and then I got my data. Yes. So
very cool.
Yeah.
And I know that you mentioned earlier, so we're going through like the delete button. I'm curious whether this actually spills out of Postgres itself. I know that we've got row level security on, so that even if you tried to delete a post which did not belong to you, it wouldn't work because the database would reject it. Is this coded up, hand coded, or does it spill out of the database sort of permissions itself, the row level security permissions.
So let's look at the delete. Oh no, that's a vote. Let's quickly have to find the delete post. It's probably in the feed item, and there should be a delete post mutation somewhere. Yeah, here's the delete button. As you can see, the delete button again has a data dependency on the post because it needs the ID of the post. And then what we're doing within here is we're actually using the delete post mutation, which is defined here. So here we describe that we want to delete at most one record because we don't want to accidentally delete more than one, but this will not happen. And then we actually filter by the ID, which is equal to the post ID. And what you mentioned is, yeah, correct. Actually, we cannot delete the post of another user because it's enforced by the database triggers. So we as a viewer, we are sending our access token to the server with which we execute the GraphQL mutation. And basically PG GraphQL will check whether the post we are trying to delete is actually owned by us. And if that's not the case, then it will fail. But in case of the front-end application, we are not even like, we are not doing error handling for this because we are not even rendering the delete button if we're not the owner. Like you can see the user is actually from Supabase auths. So we have some handy hooks here for accessing the current session. So this is the user object. And what we're doing, we're only rendering the delete button if the user ID, like if there's a user currently that's viewing this, like you can also look at this unauthenticated. And then in the next step, we're checking whether the post owner, like the profile is the owner, whether the owner ID equals to the current viewer's ID. And only if that is a match, then we render the delete button. So we have, on the one hand, the like API PG GraphQL safety that only a user can delete his own posts. And on top of that, we have it on the front end because we only want to show the delete button for posts that are actually owned by yourself, right?
Very cool. Very cool. Any other things that you'd like to highlight from the code before people can jump in and start looking around themselves?
Let me quickly think. Oh yeah, we also included a GraphQL route. So that's handy. I won't mess around with sharing my screen, like changing what I'm sharing right now. But it's cool because it's actually from GraphQL Yoga, which is cool because we built GraphQL Yoga super modular so that all the functionality can be reused wherever needed. And in this case, you can just plug the render GraphQL function, put it into your existing Next.js application, point it to your Supabase endpoint, and then you have your own GraphQL. That's awesome.
Very cool. Auto-generated. I think this is one of the coolest things about GraphQL, that you just get all this documentation for free. I think it's one of the things we're built into our dashboard for the REST endpoints. But yeah, I think we took a lot of inspiration from GraphQL itself, the way that they do it, and yeah, it's just a very neat feature.
Yeah, GraphQL is just such an awesome evolution from like basic REST for building applications.
Yeah. Cool. Well, if you want to check that out, please do check out on the either the blog post or the application here is on this URL, which I think actually I believe I've even got the GraphQL route, which we were just talking. Copy link. Thor just sent it to me, so I'll open that up. There you go. We've got here a nice
It's
dark
taking,
mode as well.
like, this is also something I have to criticize a bit. It's taking a bit to load, but that's like you don't need this for actually running your application, right? It's just for development mostly. You don't need this in your production, and maybe it can be cached in the future. But
Very
yeah,
cool.
this is actually we're showcasing actually some super new GraphQL features, which is tabs, which we recently added to GraphQL. So you can write multiple operations here. And also here you can build your own like operations for your PG GraphQL endpoint. Oh, you need to
Need an
provide
API
your
which that's part of the Supabase security passing in a non-key. But I believe that you can actually just code this into the request on the perhaps you can send it with every request, the API key ourselves. So yeah, this is actually a Supabase error if you don't pass an API key, which we in theory could remove from our API for the GraphQL, but it is one level of security that we want to keep to make sure that people aren't hammering databases. Yep.
Yeah, that was actually also a learning process. There's like two keys you can provide. One is the header API key, which you need to send always, and then you can also send the authorization header, which is a BIRA token header, which you then send for the authenticated user. So the API key you actually have to send always, and then if you authenticate, you also have to send the authorization BIRA header.
Yeah, that's right. The API key, actually, if you didn't notice, is it's a JWT itself, a very long-lived JWT, which is mapped to a Postgres user. So it's the anon user, and the anonymous user will not be allowed past row-level security, Supabase row-level security. And then we provide another API key called the service role key, and that will bypass any row-level security. So you can use it on a server. For example, if you want to update all your users in your database, you would use a key which can bypass the row-level security. But if you only want a user to update their own profile, then you would use the anon key and just change the authorization header. That's the model. Okay, so I think we're jumping in. How many people can we have? I think it's going to be we can 5. Very cool.
5 more.
Yeah, I think we have a total of 10 that we can bring on. So if there's any more in the guild, I mean, there's plenty. We can bring
Laurin
on more.
escaped. He ran away.
Yeah,
That's good.
I think he's back. Yeah, I mean, I think we can probably see if there's any questions kind of in the comments. So yeah, anyone watching live, maybe if you have any questions, or maybe we have any questions still left over from the Twitter space.
In the meantime,
yeah, go for it.
In the meantime, I just wanted to add, like, I think overall this is very exciting. I think the holy grail of app development is that you want to start really easy and really fast, but not with something that will get you stuck as you scale and as you grow. And here, I think, first of all, what you did in Supabase in general is really exciting, because before that, like, the alternatives, you would get stuck. Like, you would maybe build very fast, but then you would get stuck, and as you scale, you will basically be, bundled into something that you can't control at all. And with Supabase, that's exactly the opposite. And now adding GraphQL, I think, what Laurin showed is basically that, Laurin showed, I don't know if like everyone understood it, but Laurin showed really advanced GraphQL features. And like he said, he built it really quickly. So you could start extremely easy, and then you could scale your front-end code and add more developers, and still, get all the, nice features. I mean, what Laurin demonstrated there was all kinds of features of the CodeGen, for example, that together with the Supabase API, you can do it, which, people in the GraphQL space always let's say they say those features are, you have to use Relay for that. Like writing fragments next to components and fragment masking and things like that. And thanks to actually Laurin's work, you can now do that without Relay. You can use super popular tools like Urkel and Apollo Client with the CodeGen to get these benefits. And here you will just get a GraphQL API directly from your database, and you can start using those things and writing code that literally could scale to thousands of components, and basically write code as if you were in Facebook writing front-end code. So that's extremely exciting, and I think the next thing after that would be to find more ways of scaling your your app and not throwing away what you have, basically starting super quick and then continuing. So this was very exciting for us to work with you guys, and basically all the things that we've done already and the things that are more to come. So thanks for the opportunity as well.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, we're super excited about the future of what we're building together as well.
Cool. I think there is one question. So this one isn't a question. I think that's just kind of calling out what Laurin said earlier, kind of the unification of the type systems being really powerful. Yeah, I think that is one thing. Then there is one question from Dan. Why was the GraphQL support built as an extension? We cannot deploy new extensions to hosted DBs like AWS RDS. So that's probably kind of a question around sort of self-hosting, or maybe anyone wanna jump in there?
I can take that. Yeah, so the reason we built it as an extension was to make it easier to hook into the existing security principles, the Postgres primitives. So grants for column visibility and then row level security policies. That becomes a lot easier to build out and test if we have it embedded directly in the database. So that's the user-facing reason. The other is having on a hosted platform, you don't want to have, or you want to have as few moving parts as possible. So by putting it directly in the database, we can remove a lot of the complexity that would come from having a second or third or fourth independently managed standalone process running on the background per customer.
We explained quite a lot of this in the first blog post, which is worth reading, the one that we released in our launch week 3 in December. With PG GraphQL, we actually serve it over the Postgres, a RESTful API endpoint, and then we use the extension, we expose it over a route, which has actually some interesting benefits, which you, I think, highlighted maybe in your video, Ollie, but maybe you want to talk about the N+1 problem or some of the performance benefits of actually embedding it directly into the database itself.
Yeah, so on the N+1 side, every GraphQL request is transpiled into exactly one SQL query. So we pass the GraphQL request out into an AST, JSON AST in Postgres using its built-in JSON support, and then traverse that AST, extracting the field names, converting them to columns, building up one large nested CTE SQL structure that will select all of the data that you need as JSON and run that straight back through the as a result to the SQL function that Postgres then can return to the user. So that plus Postgres handling of converting headers and JWTs to settings and config within the transaction of the Postgres request gives us all the security, solves the N+1 problem, all in single round trip quite efficiently.
And I think worth calling out, yeah, definitely well aware that it's not available on other hosted platforms like AWS or GCP, but we have completely open sourced this, I think, on Apache 2 or MIT or possibly Postgres license. Is it, Ollie?
Yes, and it's not as far away at the moment from being able to run on independent platforms as you might think. So everything, the vast majority of the project is written in SQL. There's only one C component, and that is the parser. So the part that takes it from the GraphQL statement to the AST. We're using libGraphQL parser for that, which is a C library from Facebook. But if anyone's feeling ambitious and they want to rewrite just the parser, the rest of it will work by default.
And of course, we would be completely open to other platforms hosting it as well. So that's part of the promise of Supabase. We want to keep everything open source, and you can self-host it yourself. We package it up already into our Postgres offering as a Docker image, or you can go and find our Postgres offering with a bunch of other extensions bundled in within the Supabase organization. I think, Thor, do we have any other questions?
No, we don't really have questions. We have a couple things of people saying they're quite happy with the experience, using it for hackathon, and found it pretty easy to spin up. So that's great.
Very cool.
There's one feature request that's more for image transformation for storage. That's a nice one. Yeah, I think
Sure.
we've heard that a couple times.
Yeah, that one's on its
So I
way.
mean, the next launch week is only couple more
3
nights
months
away.
away.
So exactly. So yeah, I think that's it, and I think we're we covered a lot of things, and if there's nothing more to say, any closing words, we can go around the room. Maybe any cool things, check out GraphQL Yoga 2, I think it is. Give that a go.
Yeah.
And
I think just to wrap it up, once again, thanks to the Guild for making the example and working with us over the past few months to make this a really awesome release. And definitely go check out the Guild, follow them on Twitter, go and check out their release today. It's a big one. And if you're interested in playing around with PG GraphQL, please go check it out on our repo, give it a star, share it with your friends and your family down at the library and the pub, wherever you like to hang out, and definitely test it out. And if you have any feature requests or you spot any bugs, that's what we're here for. Please do share them on the repo, and we'll try and make this as awesome as we can, and make the Supabase platform even better.
Marvelous. And
wait, one more
Laurin?
thing. Send pull requests to Super News and implement new features.
Definitely. Super News. We're going to convert all of Hacker News over to Super News. So
We need the
rewritten
community
in
help.
GraphQL. Yeah, with everyone's help. Yeah.
Fabulous. With that, this was day 2 of Super Launch Week. You can check out the Super Launch Week hashtag on Twitter. Tons of tweets going on. We're also recapping everything. If you didn't follow live, we'll also have this up as a recording. You can watch it, on the train to work tomorrow or whenever you want. But also, don't forget, we're doing this for the whole week. So same time tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. PT Pacific time. We will be on Twitter Spaces, just having a little chat, going along, and then running over into the YouTube live stream. And I don't think there's any hints yet, Couple, unless you want to drop some for tomorrow. I think
just know that Friday is going to be a big one. It's definitely
Friday.
April 1st. It's definitely going to be a big one.
Yeah, maybe something hardware related. Who knows? I actually.
So we've been inspired from our time in Germany. So definitely check out the Friday morning release. It's going to be big.
All right, and with that, have a good day, have a good night wherever you are, and see y'all tomorrow. Thanks so much for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.